Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our June 3rd council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Meneghini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
The approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of May 20th and special meeting of May 21st. Any additions or corrections?
I make a motion we approve the regular meeting May 20th and the special meeting May 21st.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval of manifest 2013-11 in the amount of $192,279.82. Mark.
Okay, Jeremy, I got a couple here, a couple quick ones. Looks like page 3, it's cut off, but about halfway down, Ray, on the fire department fund, trailer power parts, there's a couple of those. Is that like a generator parts, or is that for plugging some kind of a trailer in? There's like 3 different things.
The only trailer that I can think of is the trailer that they use for the HUV system that they have. They use with the North Alert, but I'll double check on that.
It might also be for the corn stand.
Or the corn stand. Okay, I don't know. I'd have to double check though. I don't know the details on that one.
Okay.
Okay, and then on the electric side, it's on the next page, page 4. Joe, the gas, the fuel was reimbursed, that's what that states there, right?
Yes, that is just a fuel reimbursement.
Okay, was anything ever checked about that wage when Joe had to go out east or whatever? When I had brought that up with...
Yeah, I mean, we checked with, WPPI does not reimburse us as part of our willingness to sit on these boards. That wage is something that, we benefit from sitting on boards, whether it's myself or Joe. And so the city's obligation is to pay us while we are doing business. And, they're as an organization, that's their understanding with us. If the council has any disagreement as a whole on that, we want to hear about it, but, that's typically how that works.
Yeah, I realize
we bring it up.
I realize that you should be getting paid, but I thought that, because Joe is actually a board member, that they should reimburse the city.
Well, they cover his expenses, but our benefit, again, the city and the ratepayers and the taxpayers, they do benefit from us being involved in these different groups. And so the city is allowing us to be on the boards. It's our, that we pick up that, the wage, and they pick up the expense. That's how it's across all of the municipalities that sit on that board. So.
On page 5, up on the top, Joe, the electric, Empower Technologies for $3,600. What was that? Some kind of meter analyst?
No, Mark, a while back, council approved us moving forward with Empower for the GIS grid improvements and mapping,
Oh, okay.
and that's what that is. It's
Okay.
just paying them. It's already been approved by
Okay,
council.
yeah, it doesn't say mapping, so
Yeah.
that's all I got, Jeremy.
Okay, Chris?
Just on page 1, there was a Wilson auto collision for decal removal. Is that on the old squad car?
Yeah, that's the old squad car, the new pool car. As I mentioned I don't know if it was at the budget hearing or the last meeting, but because the Intrepid is no longer with us, we're using the Impala now, and that's okay for getting around town, but the mechanic has told us, don't take it too far out of town. You want to be close enough that when it breaks down, that you can get back. So I think it's okay, like you said, I mean, Jim's been using it for lots of his work, running around town, but taking it outside to meetings and stuff, it's not gonna be reliable enough, let's put it that way.
That's all I had.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Hayes.
No questions.
Lee?
A couple were answered already, but under police department, excuse me, state of Michigan, 2 full 7 levels, 3 radio, whatever, for $550. What's involved in that?
We pay on an annual basis, is it annual or quarterly, Mary?
That is quarterly.
Quarterly, we pay on a quarterly basis for the 700 megahertz system, 700 megahertz.
okay.
That the state police band is on, and so that's sort of our payment for being on that system.
Okay, and under mayor council elections, I see that WPPI gave 3 $500 scholarships to local students, which is very impressive.
Yes, in fact, we normally, there's 2 scholarships at 500, but because we had 3 excellent candidates this year, we asked them if there was a way of providing that third, and they came through, and we were able to use some other funds, so that was good.
Now, these scholarships, one says what, electrical lineman, is that supposed to be that second one, electrical lineman also?
Yes, there's 2
Well, it's
linemen.
cut off there, and then public power, what's that?
Well, there were 2 lineman scholarships, and the other is an engineer.
Oh, okay. And one other question under Department of Public Works. Terminal Supply Company, vehicle headlight 129, vehicle headlight 129. 2 different bills, they're both 180, 153. They're under a different inventory number, but otherwise everything else is identical. About halfway down, Joe, under Department of Public Works.
That's something Rick must have done. I don't have any knowledge of it, but I can find out and
Okay, because
get back to
the
Rick.
inventory number is different, but everything
Yeah,
else matches
I
up.
see what you're talking about. It's the same number, but we'll just
Okay,
back.
that's all I have.
Okay, I have no questions. I'm looking for a motion to approve manifest 2013-11.
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest 2013-11 in the amount of $192,279.82.
Support?
Motion made by Lee, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or the agenda items? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. If not, there's a further time for comment on any subject at the end of the meeting. Okay, first thing on the agenda this evening, we have a public hearing on the fiscal year 2013-14 through 2017-18 multiple year operating and capital improvements budget and general appropriations. Mr. Anderson, well, we need a motion to go to public hearing.
I'll make a
Make a motion
motion.
to
Oh, go ahead,
Go
Doug.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Make a motion to go into public hearing to discuss the budget.
Is there support?
Support?
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Public hearing is set up annually for our budget, during our budget process. This is something that, we've spent 5 workshops between staff and council over the month of May, starting as early as April 29th and ending up just a week and a half ago. Went through each one of our funds, some more detailed than others. The city has 13 funds. I'll quickly read them off. There's the general fund. The general fund is the fund that handles your taxes. And then you have the major street fund and the local street fund. You have the downtown development authority, the museum fund, the fire fund, debt service fund, and then we have our utilities, which is the cable television fund, electric utility, golf, wastewater, water, and then we have a capital improvements fund. The capital improvements fund was set up a number of years back when we sold Fumie Lake and we established the capital fund to pass through revenues and expenditures for capital-type projects. We still utilize the fund for major projects, even though by the time the auditor is complete, a lot of those expenses and revenue items get shifted to the appropriate individual fund. So it's almost like a sweep account, if you want banking terms, or it's a debt service fund. Well, not really a debt service fund. It's more like a sweep account that monies go in and out to better track a project as a whole, as opposed to trying to figure it out through multiple funds what the total cost of the project is. Probably utilized by staff more than anybody to keep track. Again, as I mentioned, we had the 5 budget workshops. The main discussions in the workshop involved general fund and our street funds, our electric fund, our cable operations, our golf. We talked about at one of our council meetings about the golf fund, and we passed a debt elimination plan in the golf fund that we sent to Treasury, but that rolled into what's in your budget today. And of course, wastewater with our project that's coming up, and the water fund. The total revenues for a proposed 2013-14 budget across all 13 funds is $13,105,949. The proposed expenditures are $12,920,135. Each fund is balanced, so that is something that we worked hard. A couple funds that we, like I said, we spent a little additional time on highlights of our 5 budget workshop discussion. Involved general fund, mainly dealing with the major and local street fund. Now your major and local street fund, you know, we've been struggling mainly because our operating expenditures for maintenance equal to or slightly exceed the revenues that come in through our typical funding source, which is our Act 51 funding. We have some other smaller type of revenues that come in through other calculations on the state, such as what we call a snow fund, and we have a Metro Act fund, or Metro Act revenue, which is your right-of-way payments that was established on a statewide basis. But the bottom line is that just maintaining the streets equals or slightly exceeds the amount of revenue coming in. So we spent a lot of time talking about, you know, we know we need to handle some basic street maintenance or improvements in our local streets, and we need to try and infuse some dollars, figure out how to get the dollars in from other sources. In that discussion, we did look at some of our transfers from some of the other funds. We were able to coordinate $280,000 that we're going to try and program into our street fund for this coming up year. And just for perspective, looking at what kind of work we can do for that kind of money, if we were to totally reconstruct a street, which means taking out the subbase, totally cleaning it up, and then repaving it, the estimate for a 400-foot by 30-foot block, which is one typical block in town, is $118,000 or $119,000, which, so you can see we can do maybe 2 blocks of street. If another option is to basically come in and do what they call a crush and shape, which is, or you could do what they call mill and pave. Basically, they're about the same. You just clean up the surface, take up the asphalt on the surface. You not do too much with the subbase, but you repave a 3-inch asphalt layer. That comes out to about $28,000 per 400-foot block. Again, if we have $280,000, the math says it's 10 blocks. However, we're going to have to bid the project. I'm not sure if there's a lot of extent of engineering involved with that, but we might have a few costs associated with actually doing the bidding process and getting contract established. So I'm currently working out those details, but that's probably where we discussed going with this. And that's something we need to look on an annual basis of trying to deal with just getting some new surface asphalt on our streets. Again, as we look at that, we also have to take into account any areas where we have future utility projects. You know, we don't want to come in and do a crush and shape job where we're going to, within a few years, be digging up and replacing water and sewer lines, which we do have an application out currently with the USDA RD for a project, which is basically around the areas of Second Avenue and some of the streets that come into Second Avenue. We look for areas that has both water and sewer in the street. Those are areas that I know that they would be high on the list of necessity when it comes to pavement condition, but it wouldn't make sense if we're going to be able to get to those within the next couple of years to actually do this crush and shape type job. So, you know, that's something by hopefully by October we will have a better idea. The USDA gets their annual appropriations by October 1st, or shortly after that. That's the federal budget fiscal year, and we'll have a better idea if we're going to have a 2014-15 approval of those applications. We talked quite a bit about the electric fund and the rate involved in the electric fund and the master plan and what we were doing. We do have on this in this council agenda the rate resolution where we do show a 2% increase on our electric. But remember, we do have the PCAC, which does help offset that for good water. In fact, you'll actually, more times than not, you get the negative because your lower rate because our factor is set up on the bare minimum of 1 megawatt. And we have traditionally, even in low water, been able to hit that 1 megawatt. So we're, you know, even with the 2% increase, we're still down below the registered rate of currently at 12 cents, a little over 12 cents. So that's something we talked about. Cable television, that was something we've, early in the year, we did a cable TV or cable system evaluation, and it was identified that our rates were substantially below the adequate level for especially on the TV side, on the video side, so there's an increase involved in the cable television. The other rates, the internet rate and the phone rate are staying the same. But there will be overall, there will be a $9 increase, no, $7 increase, I'm sorry, on the cable television.
The basic was going up $3.
Yeah, basic was going up by $2, and extended basic was going up by $7. So the other rates though are staying the same. We are going to have to continue to evaluate the wastewater rate based on an upcoming project, but that's something that we'll have to have finalized by January 1st. So at this point, there's no need to raise that. We're meeting our revenue over expenditure obligation in the wastewater fund. We're still coming back on that fund. In the past, we've had a negative fund balance, and that has been, we've been slowly coming back to even on that fund. So it's healthy right now, and it continues to be in better shape. Overall, I'd say I'd like to thank the staff. Spent a lot of hours starting in January and February on putting these numbers together. The budget is available at City Hall and at the library. It can be complicated, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of numbers, so you know, if you have questions, you can come to City Hall. We can try and answer some of those questions. I'll entertain any other questions you have at this time, I guess.
I'd like to make one correction. You said that the capital improvement fund started with the sale of Lake Fumie. In actuality, it started a number of years before that, because at that time we were taking the sale of property, which was occurring on an annual basis, and just putting that money into the general fund, and it was being lost in the general fund. And I thought it should have been done something special with it, either buy more land or do some other project, so that's how it started. That was a number of years, and then with the sale of Lake Fumie, that put so much money into that fund that other uses were used for the fund.
Okay.
We used it for purchase of property in the past that the city needed, and we used it for other projects.
Well, I stand corrected.
Okay. Open for comment. Does anybody from the public wish to comment on the budget?
And my biggest comment tonight would be that the PCAC right now is 2.5 cents, and they asked Mary to ask what that amounted to, and the 2.5 cents last month amounted to $55,000 or $56,000. And I certainly think we need to give money back, but if we want to pave streets or go through with projects, the money either has to come from taxes or utilities. I don't think anybody's going to give us a grant to pave streets. And we don't want to pay any more taxes, and I don't want to pay any more taxes, but I would like to see some of that money used to pave streets. My own personal opinion is we ought to put a floor of 1 to 1.5 cents, and then the next 1 to 1.5 cents directly into paving streets. Alternatively, we got a number of major projects that we can't afford for the electrical department that we could put the money into. The manager's packet indicates that Norway has the lowest utility rates in the UP last month. And there's nothing wrong with being the lowest rates in the month, but again, we either pay a little bit more in utilities to pave our streets, which people can shut off their lights if they want to save money, or but it's kind of hard to pay less taxes. So I feel that we should take some of that money and put it into our streets. That seems to be a major concern. The taxpayers voted for 2 mills, which only improved a couple of streets in town. There's still several other streets that are in very poor condition, and if we had $28,000 a block, we could have paid for a block. So I would think we need to take some of that money and put it into being earmarked for street pavement. My recommendation. The other option would be to earmark it towards some major project. We've got millions of dollars worth of electrical projects.
Well, there currently is a floor on it of 4 cents, so it can't go below 4 in the reduction. The issue I would have with that is the PCAC, if we did that, we should then reset the PCAC to be average water. Because right now it's set, it should always be negative, because it was set up on the worst water that we had seen. And with that, like I said, it should always run negative, so if we're going to set a smaller floor on it, we should have set it for average water, so it actually fluctuates up and down, like it's supposed to. To just say we're going to chop the floor even, or bring the floor up even more so it's a smaller decrease, I don't know that I agree with, just because of the way it was set up when we first set it up.
Well, how you set it up, my thought is that we should use some of that money. Last month, we gave back $55,000. I think a part of that money should be set aside for the streets.
But if we reset the PCAC on average water, you would only have 1.5 cents or less. Because it was set up for bad water. And so that in the good times, we put a floor on it so that when we had great water, they would make some extra money. But in the bad times, they wouldn't lose money. So the way it is now, it's set up so at the bad time, it's still going to run zero. So if we did anything like that with raising the floor up anymore, I'd want to see the whole rate readjusted to be average water, not bad water, just so that it's fair to the residents.
On the paving of the streets, I think that we should be transferring that money over in a timely manner with all the paving that is going to be done in town here with the US 2 and the parking areas. And I was told that it could be transferred over, like even as close as July. We're going to get our best rate for paving when everybody's doing work in the city. And like I suggested last time, that on some of these streets that are non-truck routes, we could be under the 3-inch that Ray was talking about for $28,000. We had talked last time, and we were gonna go with the 3-inch at the intersections, a radius of the intersections, and step it down a hair and save a little bit of cost, instead of going with the 3-inch. So I'm with Doc. I think we need to get the paving under control. I do think there's other spots where we can save money. And I know the rest of the council doesn't agree with what the thoughts that I had as putting one officer on day shift, because the police department uses up a lot of our tax dollars that could be used as paving. But that's my opinion.
I don't know what page this is, but on general fund expenditures here, just above major and local street funds, an additional transfer of $280,000 has been programmed for road improvements for 2013-14, and that's out of the electrical department already. So that's a good chunk. You know, it's $250,000.
But I think we could possibly even get a break on the paving under the 28,000 if we do the project sooner than next year. Being that the majority of the paving, I think, is gonna be done this year with all the projects in town.
We didn't set a timeline of next year for paving. I mean, what I need to do is I need to work with our engineers and say, what is the minimum we need to do to bid the project out? Because we're gonna have to bid it out. It could be something, I don't even know what it's going to look like. I mean, we haven't done this before. I'm assuming that it can be relatively quick though, because it's not a major estimating project. I mean, you should be able to get numbers in pretty quickly. So we're not gonna delay to next year in order to try and do this. I mean, the target would be sometime after July 1st. It would work out pretty well, actually, if we did happen to coincide with when they're going to pave US 2, which is going to happen in September, but you can't guarantee that the contractor doing US 2
Would be the same one.
is going to be the same one. It should give them a leg up, I would think, but, you know, we have to go through that process. There's no reason why if we start now on that process that we shouldn't be prepared and ready to go this fall or late summer to do some of this work.
Is there a possibility by next meeting to have some sort of a list together on the 10 blocks that the city staff is picking?
Yeah, that's another question. I mean, common sense tells me that we're probably gonna get our best project if those blocks are relatively close together, you know, and have them all over town. That's just common sense, but, you know, sometimes it doesn't always follow that. So what we're gonna try and do is we're gonna try and look at where those blocks are and see where, 60% of the local streets could be tagged as, you know, as needing this type of work. So finding a priority is probably not gonna be as hard as putting those priorities into an area that makes sense for a project.
I mean, is
But
that
we can do
possible for next meeting? And then maybe
Yeah.
even touch base with somebody like Baco and see if, I know last time I suggested it, I thought we had a gentleman here that was from Baco that had talked about that as far as stepping the thickness down just a hair and keeping the cost down and keeping the intersections where you have the majority of your stress at the full thickness.
I mean, that's a definite conversation that we can have with the traffic folks, the road folks, and see what makes sense. You know, some of it's a limitation of your paving machine, of what they can realistically do. However, those are the folks that do it every day, you know, and we definitely want to talk to them. Within a couple weeks, I mean, we should have those kind of questions answered, maybe not the technical ones you're talking about the thicknesses, but definitely the general areas that we're looking at. Again, I mean, I've already sent out messages to try and get some of that information collected. So I don't think that part of it should be too tough in a couple weeks.
Okay, so it's safe to say we could have a list in the next
Oh, yeah,
meeting,
I've got the list right now. It's just a matter of taking them and just kind of,
picking them out.
yeah, putting them together. I mean,
Okay.
we keep a pretty comprehensive list every year, you know, of the pavement condition. So you can look at, in fact, it's on the wall, you can look at to see all the red, which is the area we have to address. You just have to pick the ones that are relatively close together.
I guess I'd like to see that if we could by the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on the budget? Any other comments on the budget? Any other comments on the budget? Need a motion to leave public hearing, go back to regular session.
Make a motion, we'll leave public hearing, go back to regular session.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a long agenda tonight. We have, looks like 10 items on the agenda for this evening. First one on the agenda is Resolution 2013-14, City of Norway General Utility and Service Rates. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that, in the past, we've typically put together all of these resolutions for the budget on the same night we pass the budget. This year, we're trying something a little different. We're taking two of the four typical resolutions and we're putting them before you, a meeting before we actually bring the budget forward. The reason being, these two are, the first one is our rate structure, utility and operating fee structure, and you know, that involves all of our fees and our utility rates. The second is our non-union employee pay structure. And the reason we're bringing them forward is that if there's any issue, if there's any disagreement, any change made on them, we can make that over the next 2 weeks before we actually finalize the regular budget. If we try to put the budget out at the same time, well, like we did in the past, you might have to delay the budget or 2 weeks. It's just easier for staff to finalize the budget for you when it finally does come before council for final vote. We've talked about these during budget hearings. We talked about both of these resolutions during budget hearings. And so I guess we can entertain any questions that you might have.
Well, I just wanted to note the increases this year. The big ones will be the cable going up $7 to $49, the basic cable going up $2 to $15, and the electric is going up 2%.
2%.
The electric rates are going up 2% this year. The one that we need to talk about at council right now is whether or not we want to move forward with the compost site permit fee, because that's on there right now as a $5 permit fee, as suggested by the Planning Commission. But I know there's a lot going on with the compost site in general right now, and we need to discuss whether or not we want to have a fee on it.
I guess I got a big problem with the fee. I think that the taxpayers, you should get a little something on that benefit. And other local towns, Iron Mountain, Kingsford, Quinnipiac, or Iron Mountain, Kingsford do not have a fee. And I don't want the fee put in there. Because I think you'll start seeing illegal dumping.
Is there any other?
Where can we dump right now? I got grass clippings, where can I go with them?
Well, right now, the compost site is still open. Before we closed it, that's definitely an issue that we wanted to bring public before we actually closed it. And I know this is probably the first time people are hearing this, but because of the DEQ involvement now in our site, we cannot handle both the brush and the grass clippings in that location. And everything else pans out except for the 100-foot rule by the creek. They do classify brush as compost, and there's just no way, once you go 100 feet from the creek, that we can take brush and grass clippings and put them in the small area that's left. We can't expand it beyond where it currently is because of their designation or their proposed designation that is wetland, and you can't fill the wetland. So it's problematic if that 100-foot rule, the discussion I'm having currently with the DEQ is, why are you including brush as compost? Even though, yes, it's organic material, but it's not the same, to me, it's not the same issue as what they think with the compost.
So worst case scenario, we won't be able to dump anything there.
No,
Gotta be
we did
totally
not want
cleaned
to
up.
close the gates until we publicly were able to put this out there. But we're going to have to close the gates unless we can get a waiver on that, which it's going to take a little bit of time for me to go through that. We're going to the Planning Commission meeting, which is scheduled for Wednesday, and we're going to talk about the issue, and we're going to, again, look at alternate sites. But again, a complaint was filed with the DEQ. They came down and, you know, their rules, you know, they pretty much explained their rules. We were not aware of them at the time. And we don't really have a compost site. What we have is a collection site, you know, so they don't differentiate between the two, so.
So technically, if the place gets shut down, which chances are it will, we have to build a new site someplace.
We will have to put a build or find a new site.
And
yes.
that's gonna cost money.
It will cost some
So
money.
I would gladly pay a $5 permit to run to there instead of up to GAD all the time.
Right, and you can't bring your brush to GAD.
We can't bring brush up there, no? Okay.
Only grass clippings and leaves. So,
I agree.
Well, even though we're sharing with the township, it's gonna be an expense.
With having to put a new site up, there was unanimous agreement at the planning commission that there should be a fee. I think it's gonna help offset the cost. Now they're gonna be probably 2 or 3 times what we were thinking it was gonna take to get this compost site up and running, so I don't have a problem with the $5 fee for the compost site.
Dr. Hayes, what's your?
I don't see where $5 is gonna pay for it, I think it would increase the likelihood that people will just drive down my road and dump it there.
On this, I kind of agree with Mark and Doc that for the $5, we're not going to take in that much revenue. And this kind of thing probably should be a service we're providing to the residents, especially going split with the township on it. Yeah.
I guess I never, the first time I heard about that. Is it $5 every time you go there?
No, $5
a year.
It's like a park permit, like the county has a park
I was
permit.
gonna ask you, how are you gonna police that?
No.
Have somebody there?
Yeah, we're gonna have somebody, in the new plan, we were gonna have restricted hours, weekend hours, and some time during the week, and we were gonna have somebody, you know, monitor people coming in and out. The reason being is that right now, there's so much illegal dumping going on that part of our biggest expense involves cleaning up the illegal dumping. We're seeing whole trees, we're seeing root balls, we're seeing stumps. You know, we can't chip it like we tried last year because there's so much contamination. They won't come in and do it. Now we're having to haul it somewhere else to burn it. So that is our major expense.
It seems to me there's quite a bit of cost on having somebody man that thing.
Well, you know, you're talking about minimum wage typically, not that many hours a week when you really look at it. So that's part of the expense each year that we're taking.
You know what I mean? The reason I'm asking is that, you know, I've used that in the past. It's nice to have a place when you just happen to be doing something that you can take it and you don't have to be wondering something a couple times, a couple hours a day or whatever. It's nice in the community to have some place where you got this junk stuff and you want to get rid of it, you just go there and do it.
It is, but we're also supporting the citizens of the city of Norway, the residents of Norway right now, city, are supporting everybody within a 30-mile radius. We see Wisconsin plates in there. We see contractors. The brush probably is the biggest violator of the brush comes from contractors. And that's not, I'm not just saying that out of a whim. I'm getting reports from people saying contractors in there. So we're paying, as taxpayers, a lot to clean that up. And that's why I think working with the township, we're at least joining that effort, but unless you regulate it, it's...
I didn't realize you were having those.
oh, we're having huge issues.
I just,
I would guess to say there's probably only 30 different vehicles that go in and out of that site. And I don't, like Jeremy said, I don't think you're gonna make, and Doc, I don't think you're gonna make any money at it. And I think you'd be better off, rather than manning it, is to put a camera up there.
And we have been, I did entertain, I'm looking at some prices for different areas. I mean, now is the time when we're getting vandalism, and, you know, we have some other areas that we have concern. We have that one, we have the same problem going on with our recycling dumpsters. We have some of the parks that are getting hit. We just got hit up by the golf course, you know, so we definitely, I'm looking at a system that we could, you know, we can put out there. And that will help. That definitely will help.
so, it doesn't sound like there's enough.
Well, we'll take it off. We don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
We just need a direction.
And make sure we discuss that at the planning commission
Absolutely.
meeting this week. The other changes that I've seen on here, we're adding a 30 meg internet package for $72. We didn't offer anything that big up to this point, but that will be available. And we made one minor adjustment to the water and sewer tap fees. So those are the adjustments on the rates. I believe that's all of them. Is there any questions or comments on the rates? Any other? If not, we're looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2013-14.
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2013-14 and Resolution 2013-15, utility and
Just 14.
oh, just 14?
Support,
We got to make the amendment to take off the,
the $5.
With the amendment, take the $5 fee off for compost.
okay. Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 2013-15, City of Norway pay rates for non-union employees. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is something we've been doing for a number of years now, where any of the employees that are not governed under labor agreements, under union contracts, we put together a resolution of their annual rate or per hour. This includes everybody from myself all the way down to our seasonal employees. So typically, they follow the, what we negotiate with our labor agreements. It's open for discussion.
Is this a new one, Ray, the seasonal summer employment senior with use of personal vehicle?
No,
I
that's
know
something we've done for the last couple of years.
Well, that has been on there, okay.
Yeah, if somebody comes in, because we've talked about trying to limit the amount of vehicles that we have in the fleet during the summer because of the amount of extra people that we have, in a number of cases where, especially in your senior type person, not your college student, they are maybe willing to use their own vehicle to take around a lawnmower or whatnot.
I think we had
establish
that last year too with the cleaning of the
Yeah.
restrooms and that.
Okay. And then the Gulf seasonal grounds position one, that's a dollar amount per week. Is that a new one or is that the same?
No,
too?
that's
a new one, isn't it?
We did bump Terry up this year.
Oh, that's okay.
That's his, I know he had a starting wage last year, but he's not on a per hour basis. He's on a
Right.
per week, so he puts in however hours.
I was
he
just
needs.
knowing that was different than last year, that's all.
It is, and we decided to bump him up a little bit this year because he's been doing a fantastic job, so we thought that was
Ray,
appropriate.
this doesn't cover the ball fields like we were talking about last time with the Little League?
No, it doesn't. I have to meet and talk with Little League. I'm gonna be proposing a flat dollar figure for the summer. Initially, we're gonna have to, work through somebody taking care of that, but by, hopefully within the next few weeks, by the start of the budget, July 1st, I wanna have that established. I think it's just cleaner, working with them that way.
And then that'll have the dates on it, right? Typically, you said just summer, but I know last time when we were in the budget hearings, we talked about the dates.
Well,
Because
What I mean-
You don't want summer to be over physically or literally, and the ball field's not getting taken care of when
It-
they have,
It really needs to start whenever the grass starts growing.
Yes.
Or when they start maintaining it, and it needs to follow through, probably through September, October, before they put it to sleep, so to speak.
Well, and that would be where a flat dollar amount would come in, where they would
Yeah.
pay us this much a year, and that would be figured in. There wouldn't be a per month, it would just be, you pay us
Yeah,
this much
we
a
would,
year.
we would just say, here's how much, because otherwise we would be maintaining it a certain way. I know it's not, wouldn't be the way that they maintain it, but it's like, here's our contribution towards maintaining it. Then you guys, whoever, however you want to deal with handling that, you deal with it. And I think it's just cleaner for us.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Now I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2013-15, the City of Norway pay rates for non-union employees.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Next is approval of Resolution 2013-16, 2013 Oakcrest Golf membership rates. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a revision from last fall's approval for 2013 membership rates. Coming off of the discussion we had about the discount for, we have a discount for City of Norway residents, a 20% discount. And then a question was raised about City of Norway business owners. So what we did was we added an addition to the line item where it reads 20% discounts for City of Norway residents and City of Norway business owners, one discount per business, and the discount must be applied to an owner's membership.
I don't think people who own a business have as much at stake in the city as a resident. Myself, I'd like to see they give something, but I don't think they ought to get the full discount of 20%, especially since their golf fund is negative. I guess I'd like to see 10% myself.
The only thing, Doc, is we requested some funding from some of the businesses with some signage out there. And, we're looking for money from the businesses sometime to support different things at the golf course. And, some of the businesses are paying higher taxes than the residents. And I agree with you as far as the golf fund is in the negative side, but I think we need to go across the board. If we decide we're gonna go with a 10% discount, then go 10% for everybody.
Well, I think we should
But I
do
think
that,
it
and if
should be the
people-
same.
I think we ought to do 10% for everybody then, and people who've paid got the 20% discount who've got their fee already should be able to have it, and those who are just getting it now, buying their memberships later, shouldn't.
I think that's a
We
good
talked-
idea.
We talked about making it 10% for everybody next year. So we could start that, I would think, 10% for everybody. Would be my recommendation.
Anybody else have any thoughts or feelings? I know we talked about that during budget hearing.
Dollar-wise, it isn't really that much total dollars. But I say, for now, I'd just as soon let it go at the 20%. Next year, we can see where we're at.
Chris?
I know if I was I'd be happy to go get my membership for 20% off if I was a taxpayer in the city. If I golfed, I should say.
I feel the same way as Doc. We're
Okay.
discounting too much.
So, Ray, should we adjust that so that it's 10% for everybody going forward?
One thing that we did talk about is that we would retroact the businesses for this year.
So if they've already got their membership.
Most of them already have them, because the golf season started. So just about everybody's getting a membership has signed up. So, if you go 10% forward, that's fine for next year, but most of your almost all of your memberships are out there now. So what we were proposing is that we would retroact, for those business owners for this year. So,
But retroact to 20% and then go 10% forward from here?
From anything that, any new ones that
Yes,
come in.
I think that's,
Is that okay
That's
with you, Doc?
Okay.
Okay. Did you get that, Trish?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, who wants to make that motion?
Now, that's strictly for the membership, not the green fees?
That's correct.
The green fees will stay at 20%.
No.
no.
The whole works is going back, green fees and
No,
membership?
that's under a different resolution, the green fees. It's under
This,
different.
this one will just be.
This is just membership.
Just
one's
member,
just
okay.
membership.
I'm just making sure.
I'll make the motion with the change for Resolution 2013-16 to retroact the 20% for the businesses that had already purchased their membership, and from here on, it's a 10% across the board.
Okay. Is there support?
Second?
Motion made by Mark, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
No?
Okay, next on the agenda, Resolution 2013-17, discontinue right-of-way at intersection of 9th Avenue and US 2. Mr. Anderson.
This particular resolution, we really didn't want to put a number on it right now, but we do have 17 on it, I guess. This particular resolution is similar to vacating. When we come through and we have a vacating of right-of-way. However, one thing that I did some research on this, and this is our 9th Avenue intersection, where we reconfigured the intersection. Now we have an area, pretty substantial area that is no longer needed for right-of-way. We have new area that needs to be applied to right-of-way. The city owns all of the properties, so it's a matter of discontinuing right-of-way and then accepting new right-of-way. When I did some research on it, I went to the Home Rule City Act to start. It says go to your charter. I went to the charter, and it basically says to adopt, accept, reject, or discontinue right-of-way. You basically accept the resolution, the premise of the resolutions, which I have in your packet. In fact, this is a resolution that is provided from MDOT. So I want to make sure that MDOT, under their Act 51, that the language is clear, and this is why we want to do it in two resolutions, one to discontinue and one to accept. We don't want to have any hiccups, because then we'd be back here doing it again based on their language. But we have to go out and publish for public hearing minimum 30 days. So this is going to put us to the second meeting in July before we hear this again. But the reason we're not vacating it is because that is not the proper mechanism for handling this right-of-way issue. It's a discontinuance. Because when you discontinue the right-of-way, then the city still owns all of the discontinued land. And then we do have a property owner that's going to, or interested, has a proposal to buy that piece. So we have to go through this process to discontinue the right-of-way, and then we have a typical property sale scenario with the property owner or with the resident. So again, I put a map within your packet which shows you the legal. I have one more legal that I need, which is coming here in the next few weeks, where it's actually going to be the legal of the right-of-way itself. We just have the legal of the discontinued piece, but that can come during this process. We don't have to publish the resolutions as a whole in the paper. We just have to publish that we're, I think we have a pretty good description of the property, intersection of 9th Avenue and US 2. I think people know where that's located, so we don't have to, if I put in the actual meets and bounds, people have no idea what we're talking about. So we want to give a good description. Again, pretty simple. and then we'll have that public hearing in July.
So we're discontinuing so that we can sell the property was the old right-of-way.
That's correct.
And then the next resolution will be accepting it, and that's where the road is current.
Correct, and we'll do that on the same meeting. So
Right.
we'll do discontinue first, then we'll do an accepting. And then once I do that, we basically have through the end of the year to submit it to MDOT, because they do their Act 51 maps once a year in February. So we have plenty of time for that. It's just, we've been working with an individual on that purchase for a while now, back and forth, and we need to get this process done.
Was there a waste line over there, Ray? An easement that needed to be for a storm sewer or something?
There is a storm line that runs along the old roadway. We talked with, that is actually in the description of, talking with this individual so they know where the properties are. We maintain all easements for utilities, if we need to get in, so.
Okay.
Ray, is that just legal jargon? You got here to be vacated, and you got vacated crossed out, and the word abandoned
Correct.
put in its place to just,
So the party does know that there is a line in there?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, and that was, what you're talking about is actually on the survey. The surveyor, when he did this map, just assumed it was gonna be vacated, but it's not, it's gonna be
Oh.
abandoned. So we'll have once he comes back with a right-of-way map, we'll have him clean this up and take that out.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2013-17, to discontinue the right-of-way at the intersection of 9th and US 2.
support.
Motion made by Mark, supported,
We're gonna go to public hearing.
Oh, go to
So
public
this will
hearing.
go to July. I think what we should do is just,
this is to publish that we're gonna hold the public hearing.
yeah, just don't approve a resolution, just approve to go to publishing.
Okay.
Yeah, because we'll set up new numbers, because otherwise we'll get all,
All right.
cattywampus
Okay.
with our numbers. Yeah,
Okay, so just to approve going to public hearing on it?
Yes.
And let's just do both at the same time on the vacating and the accepting?
Yes.
Okay,
discontinue.
they're discontinued.
Discontinue.
And Lee, you supported?
Yeah, yeah.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Lee, roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, and since we just took care of the next one with that motion, next on the agenda is approval of the wastewater treatment plant aeration project bid award. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the direction of Mead and Hunt, we move forward with bidding out a small project at the wastewater plant to call the aeration project. We've talked about this last year. We had first started with an energy study or efficiency study on whether or not this project would have a payback. Following that, we approved Mead and Hunt to move forward with engineering up to bidding. Now that bidding is over, what we want to do is approve the low respective bid. I did put in the cost of the project, and I'll highlight these. The project cost, the low responsive bidder was August Winters at $146,550. We have the company is Efficiency United. It's an energy optimization program through the state. We get a grant of $12,500. WPPI has agreed to match that for another $12,500. And then they also agreed to a grant of $50,362. So our total local share is going to be $71,188. At a future meeting, we're going to come back and request that we utilize again the WPPI 0% loan. And we have a payback on this project at 2.8 years. So I think it's a really good project. It's work that we were planning to do through the big the wastewater project that we're going to be handling with rural development. However, 0% is better than 2.5%. So we thought we'd move forward with this smaller project. nothing in this project is going to be thrown away from the new project. This is all what we were going to do anyway. So,
And basically, we'll be saving $24,000 a year.
basically.
Okay, now Ray, the sheet you have on the front that says the total amount that's gonna be left is different than the one you have on the backup information that you gave us. That says 74,638, and you have 71,188.
The 71,188 was calculated off of my calculator. So the one that I got off the internet was sent to me by Bob Collins. So I think I didn't really pen the numbers, calculate the numbers from that attached sheet. Oh, one of the reasons is because what he used is 150,000 up on the estimated cost,
Okay,
and our actual project cost is 146,500.
okay,
So that's your difference right there.
okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion, we approve August Winter and Sons to perform the wastewater treatment plant aeration project for a price not to exceed $146,550.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Next on the agenda, wastewater treatment plant aeration project engineering amendment. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I just mentioned, we had approved Mead and Hunt to handle this project through bidding. There's still some work to do from the engineer on, once we start this project, we have shop drawing reviews, and we're going to handle a lot of the inspection locally. I'm sure our guys are going to be right there watching, but there's some additional costs in handling the project that an engineer typically handles in this case. The letter that I handed out to you was provided by Bruce Hawkinson from Mead and Hunt. Their estimate is that to finish out the project would be $4,000. That would be review of shop drawings, that would also be as-built at the end of the project, and handling a lot of the contract administration that they typically do during a project. So Bruce is here. I don't know if you have any questions, but
Okay, any questions? Comments? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve WWTP aeration project engineering amendment not to exceed in the amount of $4,000, excuse me. Yeah, 19.1, yeah, 4,000.
the total project will be 19.
Total project 19.1.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Next on the agenda, approval cable TV equipment for off-air digital. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have discussed on a number of different occasions a billing item that we get on our Packerland monthly bills for the digital off-air transmission. That currently runs about $700 a month. We asked them to try and reconfigure so that we could get that without the charge, and we were able to get, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but we were able to get basically one of the possible 3 digitals. We weren't able to get all the digitals.
No, there's still
coming through.
several remaining that we cannot get
Yeah, we can't
without
get
this
through them.
equipment.
So we asked Jim to get us some pricing on some equipment and just kind of take it into our own hands. He's done that. The cost for that equipment is $3,697.35. That will eliminate the $700 per month, and the payback is 5.28 months.
Well, and also looking at this, by doing this, we're going to save $28,000 over the life of the contract. So we spend just under 4 to save 28.
Wish we could do more of that.
We're looking for opportunities.
Is there any other questions, comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the purchase of off-air digital equipment for a price not to exceed $3,697.35.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval of the Main Street dig project payment request number 1. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is, as you already have seen, that we've had a project started here on our Main Street, dealing with alleys and parking lot, and we're going to be working on Railroad Avenue pretty soon here. But this is Baco Construction's first pay request for $13,487.45. One thing I want to add, I waited until this point to bring this up. We're getting a lot of questions. During the budget hearing, we talked about paving streets, we talked about trying to get after our streets, and we are getting a lot of questions and concerns from residents as to why are we fixing alleys before we fix streets. And we try to explain it. I'm sure people don't like to hear the answer to this, but there's specific programs for specific type of streets. We're not out looking for these programs above and beyond our normal local streets, because we know we have to address those streets. But these programs are available, and the DDA, the Downtown Development Authority, has certain areas that they can spend money, and they try to help the city out as a whole by addressing certain concerns in these areas. We've already worked quite a bit on our Main Street. This particular program is just for downtowns, nowhere else. You can't go out on the highway, you can't go out, into the local neighborhoods. It is for downtowns. So we just decided that we still had some concerns. We were able to pick up one block of Railroad Avenue. They still qualified. And we still had a couple of alleys, because the businesses rely on the alleys for deliveries, and some may even decide to put some entrances in the back. But these are areas that they felt that we needed to address when we had the opportunity. The parking lot, we're digging out the old foundation. It keeps settling. It's a problem, so we're digging that old foundation out of there, cleaning that up. So we're trying to fix up the areas that we still have left in the downtown Main Street area. I know we try to explain that. I think a lot of people just don't like to, they don't want to hear that. They want to hear that we're going to go out in the streets, but we can't use this money for going out into the neighborhoods. I just wanted to clarify that. I know staff were getting a lot of that. I don't know if council's getting a lot of it, but staff's getting a lot of that. So hopefully if you hear this, we're just trying to explain where that money's coming from.
I think it's worth for everybody to know too, that was an 80% grant.
That is 80% grant. We don't pay the grant side back. That's money coming in the community. There's a philosophical issue sometimes. Grants are paid from somewhere, and we all pay for grants, but if someone else takes that 80% and you feel that we're all paying for it somehow, then you're paying for somebody else's, some other community's 80% grant. So I mean, we do aggressively go after grant monies. The way I look at it, are there some that we need to look at? Sure, but when we're able to bring in outside monies into the community and it's not causing us undue costs elsewhere, why not? Why don't we go out and try to bring that in?
Yeah, and with the DDA picking up the 20% part, it really isn't coming out of average taxpayer dollars at all.
So,
And that's important for people to know that are asking questions.
I'll get off my soapbox.
Any other questions or comments?
How are we doing on the timeline for the project? Are we still on schedule?
Scott's here from Coleman. I mean, we're looking to be paved out by the 21st, right, of June?
It's the end of June.
Yeah, the end.
Before the 4th of July weekend.
Any surprises yet, Scott? I don't know, sooner or later, you're gonna run across a surprise.
Probably. We haven't hit one yet though. And we're past what we probably would have hit. Something. That's what I'm thinking of being bold. Yeah.
Any other questions?
On the signage, did anybody look at, like when you go behind Tavarini's on that side, maybe that alley should be a one-way alley, so you're not pulling out up to the stop sign, up to US 2,
Well, Mark, that is
because it's
a,
blind.
yeah, that's a traffic control issue that council can address at any time. Another one that some people have given, have expressed to me some grave concerns is by Eblings. You know, coming in and out of their parking lot, if you go behind the old Coast to Coast, or they own that building, but that smaller building, there's some site issues there, people coming in and out. But those are all traffic control issues that the council can undertake at any time. It's not really a construction project type, so.
But yeah, I agree. The Eblings one I've heard about, and that one there too. 'Cause, you know, I've been out of that alley trying to pull it onto the highway.
There's a couple, I mean, don't we have one up by Viking, by the Viking Motel? I think that one they made one way, because of the same issue.
Something we'd have to look at. Okay. Is there any other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion that Bacos request for payment number 1 be approved for $13,487.45.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigino?
Yes.
Final thing on the agenda for this evening, the approval, property purchase request, Habitat for Humanity. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I provided you a request from Habitat for a city-owned parcel that's located next to the larger parcel that was called the old chair factory. If you remember, a number of years ago, we handled a grant through EPA and the DEQ for taking that old chair factory down, and the neighborhood partnership program in Dickinson County undertook that project. We donated at that time the properties, for that match in order to have that happen. Since then, the neighborhood partnership has dissolved, and they have transferred ownership of that parcel to Habitat for Humanity. In our conversation throughout this project, starting from day one, the city owns a piece that's basically almost all hillside along, starting from the top of the hill at School Street there and comes down to Lake Road. And we talked about donating that as part of the overall project. We never did that. Probably should have at the time, but we did not. And that piece, they'd like to incorporate that into their overall project plan. Obviously, we don't donate a property for nothing, but it's typically we sell it to them for $1, and they pay the associated fees with any of the paperwork.
I guess I would like to see us maintain some sort of easement there, in case we need to go down towards Vulcan Lake on the property, because it's not going to be able to be buildable property, but it would be a heck of a good easement area to go down that way.
Like a public, like a trail of some
No,
sort?
not really a trail. Well, easement
Steps
that
or-
could be used for a trail, but could be used for utility easement.
Right.
So if we ever had to pull utilities down there, if somebody decided to develop along the side of Vulcan Lake, we'd have access to get the utilities through there.
Yeah, when we go through the deed process, we always put in clarification in a deed for maintaining utility easement. They're going to come through under a planning phase for these projects. And in fact, one of the areas that I've talked to them already is that it's somewhat of an unusual cutout. It's 20 foot wide. It looks like it could have been an alley to the north side of the property. And I've talked with a number of different property owners along that side, and I asked Habitat that when they design their housing layout, that they keep that access almost like an alley or some public right-of-way type, so those people can access the back of their properties. And they're very acceptable to that. We've had a good relationship with Habitat. So when we go through that process, they're going to have to identify the best area for their utilities, and we're gonna maintain easements in all of those areas.
But I think that we should maintain an easement that isn't gonna be utilized to feed that project, but just to get down towards the lake. A good easement, being that we're giving them the property, we should at least maintain an easement. If there isn't any there, we should put one there.
We can do that. I think
I
we'll
think
have
we
to
should.
get together from a utility standpoint and see, what you're talking about is a main of some sort, like.
Sure, if
yeah.
it's a main, I mean, you know, we don't have to fight
Any other areas.
with somebody that takes over the property later on. Being we're giving it away, we should at least maintain some sort of an easement along the road.
Yeah.
And I was gonna ask about that, the maintaining the strip for the alley, the easement for the alley
Yeah.
in the back. Because I know for the people involved in there, the properties that are currently there, that was important to them.
Yeah.
And just if we do approve this, will that be in there? Because it's in there, the letter they sent us. I just wanted to make sure that that would still be included.
That is something that, as a priority that we have from the city
Okay.
for their development, because when they gave the very initial sketch, the area along that north side was not usable anyway in their sketch. I mean, I think they had it as green space or park or something. Well, it needs to be an area for everybody to access. And they understand that. We've had a couple of different conversations.
And just looking at their initial plan here, they're building on the hillside. Do they realize how much hillside is actually, how steep the hillside is?
The person who did that probably didn't as much. The people that I talked to understand that. So I think that even makes that more important to take that road, just take that road out that they have there and access that at a sharper corner up to the more to the north.
Okay.
They understand that. They're gonna work with us. They've always been a really good partner in town, you know.
That was like, they even got some down on the bottom of the hillside. so
Yeah,
it's like-
that's a conceptual that they just asked somebody to do.
Okay.
They still have to go through all of the,
What kind of a timeline do they have for developing that area?
well, they actually talked about trying to start something this year. You know, obviously, they're not gonna get all of the houses that they talked about, but, they talked about trying to start something this year. So,
Well,
I would say within the next couple of years. And they do have grant programs that they work with that they have to apply.
They certainly did a good job on the other side of
Yeah.
the railroad tracks there. My only question is, and maybe it's all taken care of already, 5 homes, they're smaller homes. What would the usage be for water and sewer? I mean, what would the city, are the lines big enough? Does anybody, I mean, it's
looks
an
like we
older
have-
part of town,
yeah,
I have
we've
no
looked
idea
at
what
it.
it's like there.
Ray and I have looked at it, I've talked to Dave Ball about it. In that area where you drove into the chair factory, there's a water and sewer line coming in that area already for when the chair factory was there.
Oh,
And so David thinks that the sewer line is probably big enough to do the homes. We'll have to take a look at the water line, might have to be beefed up a little bit. If that doesn't work, there's currently a water and sewer line also down here on Lake Street that goes at the bottom of the
That's for
hill.
keeping your
That's
easement.
where we've been
Yeah,
working.
and we would have to go down the hill then to connect them to at least the sewer. I don't think the water is gonna be an issue because there's plenty of pressure up there. And the power, we have power down below Lake Street that comes up the hill currently.
there's no issues
Into there.
with voltage, that area?
No. No, it's set up pretty nice for development already.
Is the
It's all
big
there.
transformer still there?
No, that's all been removed.
Ray, on the utilities, is it typically listed for just the city utilities? Per se, if DTE had to come up there, is that listed? Or it's any utilities, or how is it normally listed?
Well, we typically start by looking at just our utilities, but DTE was there with the chair factory, so I would assume that they should be able to have their gas lines. They're gonna have to look at that extension and get with DTE.
But I mean, if we put, I do seriously think we need to adopt that into this resolution. Do they normally, when you adopt something like that in there, is it for all the utilities? Do you have specific language that needs to be put in so DTE can come in, or Ameritech, or something like that? Or is it just a poll agreement that has to be done, or?
I can defer this to
for
Jay, but I
Ameritech?
think when it's a general statement for utility easement, and the utilities all want to stay pretty much within a certain area of that easement.
Generally, what to do, we worry about the city's easement, so we indicate that we reserve any existing easements over, above, and, over the ground, underground, and so forth. Water, sewer, all our electrical utilities, everything. They're in every deed that we give. Now, if you want us to include something for DTE, that's not a problem. We can just indicate all utilities, public utilities either owned by the city or provided to the property. So it would be easy enough to do that.
I think that's what should be done. So, if we need to go down towards the lake, if that one end of the lake ever gets developed and we need to go through there, that we can bring anybody's utilities down there.
Okay.
No, that's not a problem. When it's time to do the deed, let's do it.
And this doesn't have anything to do with our sale of the property, but we want to see some kind of a maintaining or putting a trail down to the lake, because presumably in these houses, there's going to be kids and they're going to want to get down to the lake. So we should have some public right of way, I would think, off of that hill to go down towards Hanbury Lake.
I know the old trail that used to cut down the hill is pretty grown in now.
Yeah, so and again, I don't know that we necessarily put that into this resolution today, but I'd like to see some type of steps or something there so people can go down and have access to the lake.
The only thing, when you get steps, who's gonna maintain them?
Or something there. But I think that should be up to the developers to do.
That might even be something that they would want to do, just so that the people buying the homes from them or going through their program can have the access. Okay. Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
Can I make the motion and put in the utility, okay. I'll make the motion, we approve property purchase request from Habitat for Humanity for the sale of Lot 33 in the Third Ward plot, not to exceed $1, with the stipulation that the utility easements be put in.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Does anyone from the public wish to address the council on any subject? If you do, you have 5 minutes. Please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Albert Goodrow, 118 11th Avenue. I'd like to know if something could be done with that railroad crossing on 12th Avenue. I went by there this morning on the south side. The first time I went across there for a month. Terrible. I didn't even try the north side. I wouldn't drive my car across there. The timbers they got going down the other side of the tracks are 3/4 rotted, gone. My back tire went down in the hole there.
Okay.
The railroad.
What would we,
We would have to contact the railroad company.
Yeah, we'd contact the
'cause
railroad.
That's theirs, it's not ours.
They
I'll
come
try to,
there-
Ace, I'll try to call him. I'll try to get a hold of him.
They come there every day and put their trucks on the tracks there, and I don't know why they can't see that.
we'll give them a call and see what we can get done, trying to get them to fix that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the public wish to address the council? Chris?
Just one question and comment. The sidewalk machine from this winter. Had some comments from people about it doing some damage to their lawns as they were coming down the sidewalk. I understand that in some situations, the sidewalk is smaller than what the machine can handle, but in this instance, it looks like they pretty much missed the sidewalk altogether. And they were requesting that the city would repair the couple divots that were in the grass because it was damaged by the city and the sidewalk machine. I know we don't really have a policy on that, but it's something that was brought to my attention, and I think that we need to discuss it and see what we're gonna do about either remedying the problem, about, either having to mark out some of the sidewalks in the winter or eliminating some routes. Some people weren't happy with the sidewalk machine in the outlying areas from downtown where it wasn't taking off all the snow and they were getting basically just a layer of ice left on the sidewalks. And some just didn't want the sidewalk machine coming down at all anymore. So I don't know if it's something we need to discuss for this upcoming winter season, how we're going to deal with that.
Well, we should capture, you know, the issues during the off-season and move forward with a plan coming into next season. This is the time, you know, to capture those. Is this the area that you had mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
Didn't we go over and take a look at that?
I handed the complaint off to David Ball and told him to get some black dirt and seed and
It was
fix
never taken care of.
Okay,
The homeowner actually did it themselves.
so it's done now?
It's done now, but
Okay.
it was
That was
nothing.
the same day that you sent that to me?
Correct.
I had handed that off.
Okay.
so.
Yeah, when we go way off course like that, I think that's, you know, we talked about that, you know, that's our responsibility. We're gonna have areas, like you mentioned, that, you know, most of the walks are 4 foot. We're just a little bit wider than that on the machine. If we get some scraping along the edges,
Yeah.
you know, we could have that all over the place.
And I think that's understandable if you get a little scraping
Right,
along the edges,
right.
but, you know, where there's divots or they hit a tree root and it was way off, I mean,
Yeah,
at least we could maybe do something with it.
yeah, we'll do those on a case by case,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're not, you know, we'll try and address those. But we should, especially if you have areas like you're mentioning, I mean, we try to hit, you know, as many as we can, but, you know, if we want to establish a route prior, then we should be talking about that ahead of time.
And I'd just like to thank staff for all the work they done on the budget. It went really smoothly this year, and appreciate all the hard work that went into that. That's all.
Mark?
I got a couple. I would like to say that the restroom up at the porta potty up at the spring looks like it's being used on a regular basis. I'm hoping that the trash pickup up at the spring is taken care of, because I called I called beginning of last week.
When
and-
you called, I had previously drove by and called Dave and told him to get it, and Ray had also spotted it, so you were a
Yeah.
third reporter,
Okay.
yes.
It's on the schedule to
It
be
is
looked
on the
at?
schedule, yes.
Okay. Was there a change in the routes for Safe School that we talked about, moving the street from, I think it was Second to one of the other ones down this way? Or is that pretty much where it's going through, or?
No, we actually, we were actually asked by the state to increase the total project amount, and not increase, this is not going to increase the local share at all. But they wanted a bigger project from us. So we're actually still looking at Second Avenue, but we're also looking at additional sections of Section Street. And we're going to be able to come in and address maybe a couple other areas as well.
So the state asked us to spend more of their money?
Yeah, actually, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I was hoping that they would have went like down Sixth to get it to the main street, because all the cross streets were way down on the south side to go from the school to Main Street. There wasn't any up this way to come from Section to the main street.
So, yeah, we went through, after we had the council meeting, I sat down with them, and we did rearrange based on some of our conversations. But then they came back and they said, we'd like a bigger project, so it's kind of like something we took out, we might be able to put back in, so we might be able to address even more of that.
Let's not put the speed bump in by the auditorium.
No, that has been out, Mark. That has been out
Okay.
right from day one. That was a conceptual idea that some college student down in Michigan State did, so.
Okay. The other thing that I have is I'm still real concerned about the 3 lanes with the 1 lane of traffic each way on US 2 towards the Thirsty Whale with the turning lane, and I know there's a meeting coming up, and I'm encouraging the public to speak their mind, because I think we're gonna have a mess if we have 1 lane each way with the turning lane.
That's going to be at the next council meeting. Ray Sharp from, was it MDOT?
No, he's actually works out of the health department up in Houghton County, but he's worked in a number of communities with the Complete Streets program. This particular lane diet discussion is not really a Complete Streets designation, it's just something.
He'll be here at the next meeting, and I agree, Mark. I encourage everybody, whether you're for it or against it, to come to the meeting and voice your opinion. We want to hear it.
Is that strictly a council decision?
Yes.
It
Yes.
is, okay. I'm encouraging everybody to come down here and speak their mind, because I think we're gonna have problems if we go to one lane each way with a turning lane. That's all I got.
Is that on Channel 7 yet, that, announcing that?
I don't think we did, no.
Wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, maybe get something in the current too.
I think they were, didn't they have an article?
They had an article, but they didn't say when he was coming in or any of that. It was all just supportive of it without a lot of information. Dr. Hayes?
This may not be appropriate for here, but I was noticing as I was driving down Summit Road the other day that going into Sweet Town is a real sharp curve. It's 25 miles an hour, but there maybe ought to be some sign there indicating that there's a curve ahead. People might go too fast coming down from Valley View down Summit Road into Sweet Town. There's a sharp, where we took out the stop sign. Used to be a stop sign, now it's a stop sign on the other road.
Anything else?
No.
Lee?
Yeah, I'd just like to repeat what Chris said. I'd like to thank everybody on staff that was involved in the budget process and everybody else involved. I can't wait to go through this next year.
The only comment I had was along the lines of what Mark was on that Highway 4 to 3. I really do encourage everyone who has an opinion on it to please come to the meeting on the 17th and voice your opinion. We want to hear it. So we want to know what the people think on this. Personally, I have concerns about it as well, but we all want to hear what the people have to say, what the people's thoughts are on it. Joe, how's the hydro looking?
Hydro's running well. We had, the water had receded enough to the point where we had taken one machine offline, but the rain we had over the weekend and last week started all the machines, the other machine back up, so now all four are running again. It's looking really good. I can't wait to see what the electric bill for May looks like.
But, okay, you said you had to shut one machine down.
Yes.
If we didn't have that hole in the gate, would we have had to shut it down?
No, that hole doesn't leak that much water.
Oh, okay.
Anything else? Any other?
No, things are going along fine.
Mary? Tricia? Jane?
Nope, nothing to add.
Ray?
Just one thing I passed out, council, just some idea. I've been getting some questions from staff asking, and I think we talked about this last year, the request to go to summer hours in the office. That would mean a different time for the window. I think last year council said that they wanted the windows to stay open from 8 to 5, but what we did was we just showed you what some of the other communities were doing, and I just wanted to just get your feedback on whether or not you'd be okay with us going to some type of summer schedule. Typically, the office would close like at 4 or 4:30. You know, it would close earlier than what it does on a regular time of the year.
Personally, I would prefer to keep it open as a convenience to our residents. I know there's a lot of people who work themselves, who come in that 4 to 5 block and who take advantage of it at that time. That's my thought is keep it what it is.
I agree with Jeremy on that one.
I'll ask the clerks, do you get much traffic between 4 and 5 o'clock?
During
Summer.
utility bills on the due dates in that time frame. There's sometimes, it's quiet between 4 and 5, but we do get a lot of traffic on due dates, or close to the due dates. Because a lot of people are coming, we get a lot of people right at 5, because they're coming right at work, after work.
I would think you'd get a lot of people putting utilities in their name and filling out the forms too. You know, because I know that's what I see is people come down here after work and people that are gonna rent and come in.
Yeah, and that kind of is all over the place depending on, you know, when they're looking at the apartments and when they get that stuff, but we do have traffic between 4 and 5. The drop boxes, you know, are obviously get a lot of use after 5 too. You know, we get a lot of the bills in the drop boxes, but we do have a lot of traffic between 4 and 5 at certain times of the month.
Anybody else care to have an thought on it? Just leave it at 5? Okay. Well, Mark, you said.
I had one other thing. I know we had some problems with the garage sale ordinance, and I think we should be looking at that as far as people putting signs on the highway with an arrow saying that they do have a garage sale on that specific day. I know we had some congestion and some upset people, but that was what the ordinance said.
Well, it's state law,
Yeah.
you know, and MDOT doesn't always follow through with, you know, if someone calls up Crystal Falls and says, you know, what's up with this, you know, rule? You know, I've spent some time talking to them about their no billboards requirement on the highway, and the definition of a billboard has nothing to do with size, you know, and it's off-site advertisement, is basically off-premise advertisement. And when I talk to them about these types of issues, they'll tell me absolutely not, you know, and so we're just basically mirroring what the state law is, state rule is. You know, we can be a little less aggressive on it if that's the way the council wants us to do. The problem is that, and this is the same problem we have with the compost site, this is the same problem we have with a lot of other rules. We will have a lot of what I call trash left over. You know, they won't come and get the sign. We had one that was advertising an event, and quite frankly, it was nothing but trash because you couldn't read it going by it. I went by it, it was all over the county. I finally stopped at an intersection down by Loretto, and I stopped purposely to read it because I couldn't read it. So it's not doing any good, you know. And if they leave the signs out after the garage sale days, then we're still left with all this stuff around town. You know, that's our biggest concern, especially on the highways.
I go by and I see that when the Legion has their little breakfast deal, and it'd be a shame if they couldn't put their sign out there.
No, and we have been accommodating for those types of things, but when we have the small little placards, they end up staying there all summer. They'll stay there for quite a while. And so we did have an individual, we were actually not really looking for dealing with that, and we had an individual that we've had trouble with, and we cited him because he's not only he's got a business, and we cited him for it, and he just refuses to go through the process legally. And then he came in right before the garage sale and said, hey, well, if I can't put my signs out, then nobody can. I said, well, guess what? We're just going to have to be a little more restrictive during this garage sale, you know. But it was really pushed by one individual. So it's not. We're not trying to be.
I hate to see the Legion have to pull their sign in, and because that's a good fundraiser for them. And you
like
know,
I
if
said,
we go across the board, I mean, they're not going to be able to put their sign there.
No, we don't, and we have been lenient on it. But the garage sale one was pushed by one individual, and so we decided that weekend that because we were going to be held to that standard, that we had to go out and deal with it. If you want to address certain dates, we can do that. You know, you can. It won't comply with the state rule, but I don't think the state's going to come in on our garage sale weekend and give us a lot of flack. You know, so what we can do is we could just say, look, we're going to suspend this from Friday to Monday, or from Thursday to Sunday or whatever. And,
You know, because you ride through Iron Mountain and you see some of the businesses have a little arrow like the Legion has going on, and
Yeah.
they're on the highway.
Yeah.
And I think we should do something.
What we should look at doing, especially for the garage sale day, is coming up with something that just says it's suspended for that
Well,
weekend.
a lot of that stuff gets left, like Ray said. Heck, I even ran across a Sharon Gray for Congress sign the other day.
Yeah, I saw.
I mean, how long has that been there?
Right. You know, and we run, you know, we go in, we don't go on private property. Where these signs are getting addressed is on public property. You know, they're in the boulevard, they're on the corners, you know, and that's where we don't go on private property to do it.
But I think something should be done, you know, because like I said, the Legion would suffer. And
Right,
you
and we've-
almost got to go across the board for everything if you start picking on everybody else.
You're right, and we have been accommodating to these types of things, but we know that they're gonna put their sign up on Sunday morning and they're gonna take it down by Sunday afternoon. I mean, we know that, and so it has never been an issue, you know, so I mean, we try to deal with common sense. But again, I wanna reiterate, all the people that were upset over the garage sale days, we were forced, our hand was forced because of one individual for that weekend. So we dealt with it.
Supposedly, he's all done with his business now.
Until the next time.
Anything else, Ray?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay, there's no closed session this evening. I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Boja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
I just think this one's shorter than the next one, probably.
We deal with that with common sense all the time.